Everyone. I'm Tom Ballard, the Groundwater Guy, and welcome to Groundwater Talk Live. Today we're talking about documenting water loss in small water systems. And this is a big issue for small water systems that are often budget challenged, let's say, and every dollar counts. And when you're producing water but not selling it, that becomes a potential problem, especially if it's a big percentage or a bigger percentage of the water you're producing. So we're going to talk today about how you document that and how you can track that to make sure that you understand where your losses are coming from. And by necessity, we need to dive into a few definitions of the topic, because we got revenue water, we got non-revenue water, we have authorized uses and unauthorized uses, and basically, so you understand what you're trying to track and how, and that's what we're going to get into today, and why this is an important topic for small water systems. All right, so let's dive in. Water loss represents water that's produced by the water system, but for which no revenue is generated. So you can right away see that this is an obvious problem, and it's an age-old problem for small water systems. You get leaks in the pipes. That's an obvious place where you're losing water. But there's a number of other places where water just kind of disappears along the way that we're going to talk about that. So typically, water for which we did get no revenue is referred to as non-revenue water, but you can have authorized uses that are approved uses of non-revenue water that are not generating any revenue, and you can have unauthorized uses. And the unauthorized is probably what we're focusing on here, because that's the stuff that's going to be like leaks and theft and stuff that we can try to do something about and enhance the bottom line here. So, all right, so why water loss assessment? Well, there's a number of good reasons here. And the number one is financial efficiency, because if you're producing water and you're spending water to pump that water out of the ground or take it from a surface water source, treat it, get it into the pipes, and everything that goes with that, and if you're not selling that water, then you're going to lose money on the water that you lose. So, and if you lose enough of it, that's going to impact your bottom line. So number one is really the financial incentive. But resource conservation, obviously, it comes down to the fact if you're pumping water from a well and you're having to work that well over time to produce water that you're then losing through a leak, for instance, or theft, then that's going to deplete your resource. And also it's going to be harder on the pump, because you're going to work that pump harder and that well harder. You're going to have to maybe replace it a little earlier or do more maintenance. And so the costs are going to be higher for you there. But conserving our resources, that's important, because you get in places like California in the Western US where you have droughts all the time, then you want to make every drop count. So leaking water that's just flowing into the ground or disappearing is probably not a good way to go. So operation improvements, being able to make sure your system is working effectively, knowing where the lines are having problems and things like that becomes a big issue too, just basically in operation. Now, a lot of places have requirements that water systems do regulatory audits every year for water loss. Texas being one of them. Georgia has a requirement, and I know there's a number of other states that have some of these requirements. So that's one more reason why you want to do this. They generally are going to have some kind of reporting requirements you're going to meet. We're going to talk a little bit later about a simple system for keeping track of water loss, but some states may require you to do a more sophisticated form. And if that's the case, then you're probably going to want to use their form, and maybe to keep track of this internally, but for reporting your water audit that goes to the state, that's going to be their form generally. So Public health protection. If you have leaks in your line, now contaminants can get in there, and so you may have contamination issues in your line that come from leaks. So that's obviously an important consideration, because knowing where those contaminants are coming into your line and tracking down those leaks and repair them is going to be pretty important. And lastly, data-driven decision making. We want to make sure we have the best data possible to manage our system. So it really comes down to tracking everything. And if you've got water losses, especially unexplained water losses, that makes it hard to manage things. And we're going to talk about meters too a little bit. Really, we're moving away from more of the unmetered consumption type of thing, but it's still out there. It makes it a little bit harder to differentiate between unmetered consumption that's authorized versus unauthorized leaks and thefts and things like that. So metered is, if you can do meters, that's definitely the way to go, because it's going to give more accurate data. Now, older meters are going to lose their accuracy a little bit as they wear down, and some of the sensors in there get out of calibration. So you're probably going to have a plan that's going to be part of your asset management plan, is to replace meters on a regular basis and kind of document where those problems are occurring, because that can be a source of apparent water loss, is meter inaccuracies. All right, so revenue water versus non-revenue water. Let's dive into some of these definitions here and get those out of the way. Revenue water, also known as billed authorized consumption. So that's going to consist of three areas. You're going to have export water sales. If your water system sells water to other water systems, there's going to be some volume. It may be an acre feet that you charge, but it's usually going to be some volume based where you're selling the water. That's going to be revenue water. And then we have billed metered sales. And that's generally going to be to people that have water meters, so you're going to be able to track that. And then you're going to have billed unmetered consumption. So you may have some unit costs, or maybe there's still some of that unlimited water consumption out there, which makes it hard to track how much water you're losing, actually, if you have a lot of unmetered consumption. Even though you bill people for it, you bill them within ranges, but it's always going to be an estimate. So when it gets down to calculating water loss, it makes it a little more difficult to do that. All right, so export water sales. This is bulk water that's conveyed and sold by the water system to neighboring water systems that exist outside their service area. So a lot of times there's an interconnect. Sometimes this is done on a seasonal basis. But usually that's going to be metered, because these agreements are going to require some volumetric sale, and a lot of times it's going to be an acre feet, but there could be another measurement as well, millions of gallons, that type of thing. But that's generally going to be metered, so you're going to be able to track that. But that is revenue water. Billed metered sales. These are going to be volume that's all metered consumption. It's usually billed to retail customers, and this is excluding wholesale or non-potable usage customers. So it's going to be retail. So whether that's domestic use, whether it's industrial, whether it's commercial, that's generally going to be metered, and so that's going to be revenue water. And then the more problematic category is where you have some bulk sales that are unmetered, and you're basically making estimates on that. That makes it a little harder to track down, but it's not metered by the utility. I think we're seeing more of these go away, especially as dollars get a little tighter. Meters just make more sense. So if it's not in your capital budget to do full meters, it probably should be, just because it's going to help you manage your water much better. All right, non-revenue water. That's going to be water that's produced but does not generate revenue, as we discussed earlier, including losses from leaks, theft, meter inaccuracies, and unbilled authorized uses. So once again, note, we have authorized and unauthorized uses of non-revenue water. So non-revenue water, or NRW for short, includes both authorized and unauthorized uses. All right, authorized versus unauthorized. This is an important distinction because authorized users of water encompass both billed and unbilled consumption that's recognized and sanctioned by the utility. Unauthorized uses, on the other hand, refer to water consumption that occurs without the utility's permission or proper billing. It often involves illegal activities like meter tampering, unauthorized connections, or theft from hydrants. But it can also include just the leaks and meter inaccuracies too. We tend to lump that in there as well. So non-revenue water classification, unbilled authorized users, apparent losses, and real losses. And these are some more definitions we got to go over here just so you understand what you're looking at. So unbilled authorized users are any meter consumption which is authorized by the utility. So it has permission of the utility knows what's going on. Generally, it's going to have some kind of estimate on how much water is used, but it may not be real accurate. But it's generally deemed by the policy of the water company to be unbilled for whatever reason. So this volume includes water that's consumed by the utility during distribution. And it may be metered or unmetered. So the water includes water used in activities such as firefighting, flushing of water mains, street cleaning, fire flow tests, and other activities for which they're occasional activities, and the utility authorizes the use of that water. So there's generally going to be an estimate on that, but it's probably going to be unmetered for the most part. Some of it may be metered, but generally, a lot of this is going to be unmetered use. Okay, so apparent losses. Now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. These occur due to errors in the system, such as customer meter inaccuracies. So as I mentioned, meters tend to lose their accuracy over time. They need to be recalibrated or replaced. So they will lose their accuracy. So your meter readings may not be as accurate as they were at the beginning. So unauthorized consumption, also known as theft, and systematic data handling errors. That's a nice way of saying bookkeeping errors. So that it happens, it creeps in there. So that's important to note. So apparent losses represent the water that's consumed but not properly measured or billed, leading to a loss of potential revenue. So, and then finally we have real losses. And this refers to physical water losses from the distribution system, which includes leaks in mains and service connections, overflows from storage tanks, and other things like that, where it's not planned, it's not authorized, and it may be ongoing. Leaks sometimes can be difficult to track down if it's leaking underground. If you split a water main and it's just leaking a bit where it's not a gusher and washing things out, sometimes that stuff can be hard to track down. And we'll do another show in techniques for tracking this down. Right now we're talking about how you differentiate and track your non-revenue versus your revenue water in your water system. So anyway, these losses represent actual water that's produced, that your system has produced and paid for, but never reaches the end user due to infrastructure issues, and therefore you don't get any revenue from it. So generally, this is calculated by subtracting all documented estimated consumption and subtracting that from documented and estimated supply. So we know what our consumption is, we know what our supply is, we know what our consumption is, we subtract consumption from supply. Now we end up with real losses or unaccounted for losses that are neither authorized nor accounted for, and so that's documented in our system. And so this generally is going to be an infrastructure type issue that we're going to need to track down. And this is why it's important to track this, because if real losses get too high, you're going to really need to do some investigating to fix those problems, because if there's a leak in the line somewhere, that's basically money that's pouring out into the ground that you've paid to produce, that you're not getting any revenue for, and you're going to need to invest in fixing those, tracking down the leak and fixing it. Tracking down the leak, like I said, can be a challenge, but that's certainly something that we need to do, especially if things get out of control with non-revenue water. All right, so here's our water balance chart here. This is just for reference. And you can see that we have, in the orange here, we have our authorized uses, and that includes both well, let me put on my glasses here, billed authorized consumption and unbilled authorized consumption. That's what's in the orange here. In the kind of gray, purpley gray down there, that's our water losses. So the blue on the side off to the left there is our actual water production, and over on the side you can see our cheat sheet there, the revenue water versus the non-revenue water. So what we're concerned about when we're talking about non-revenue water is going to be what's in this red box here. So that includes the authorized uses, which are in the orange there, and the gray purple is going to be your unauthorized uses. So, and then we're finally going to focus down below on your real water losses, because that's going to be stuff you're going to have to track down and fix. All right, so components of looking at your non-revenue water is really dividing it into apparent losses, which are metering errors and thefts, versus real losses, which are leaks. So that's going to be step number one, is quantifying what non-revenue water is. And you're also going to look at what your authorized non-revenue water is and subtract that out as well. And so what we're really trying to get at is, do we have metering errors or thefts that we can try to prevent? Or do we have line leaks, which are an infrastructure problem that we're going to have to invest some dollars in getting fixed? And things like thefts and are going to be probably maybe a little more intermittent unless somebody has an illegal tap. So we're going to want to track those down for sure. And also metering errors means you're going to have to invest in some new meters and calibrating meters, that type of thing. And so that's a little bit different than tackling line losses. All right, so using the tools, once we've documented that, we're going to use the tools. Now, American Water Works Association has their water audit software that I believe is generally available for free, and it's a widely recognized tool, but it gets a little complicated. It's really designed, like a lot of AWWA stuff, really designed for larger water systems that are a little more sophisticated. So it really dives into the weeds. I've looked at it, and for small water systems, and I tend to focus on water systems that are under 3,000 connections, and really for those systems, you probably don't need the AWWA software to really do your calculations. Now, once again, as I noted, some states have requirements to report water audits, and they have their own software, their own spreadsheet that you got to fill out. So you're going to have to use that. But in other cases, a simple spreadsheet, and I'm going to show you an example here, is the way to really go on that. It's just simple, easy to use, and you can get the numbers in, and you can track the trends, and that's what's really important here. So anyway, that is what you're going to use. You're going to use some kind of tool to track your water losses, your revenue water versus the non-revenue water, how much water you produce, and put that all together in the system to track trends. And then lastly, you're going to want to validate your data, ensuring accurate data inputs for will give you the most reliable results. That may involve testing meters, verifying billing records, and conducting field surveys. Excuse me a minute. So you're going to have to validate your data and make sure you're getting accurate data. So that's that component. And this is part of the system of looking at your water losses, getting at those water losses. Here's your water balance chart again, just for reference. And like I say, we're focusing down at really at the bottom of that purple area down there on actual water losses. Okay, so that's just a reminder. All right, so water loss tracking for small systems. So the first thing is to conduct a water audit. So using tools like we talked about, the software tools from AWWA or the spreadsheet that I'm going to show you in a little bit to document your system input, any authorized consumption, and any authorized consumption, including the water losses, and ensuring accurate data collection and analysis. So that's going to be your water audit. And quite frankly, it's good to do this on a monthly basis, track this stuff on a monthly basis. So when I talk about an audit, it's not necessarily a one-time deal. It's going to be an ongoing data collection process, looking at the data, because as with a lot of things in water systems, trends are what's important. All right, meter and track water usage. So I recommend that water systems have all meters. I realize sometimes that's not practical. They don't have to be smart meters, but you need to have meters to get accurate use on water. And these days where production costs are going up, it's really important to know how much water you're producing and how much water is going through your system in various places so you can track down the water losses. So installing and maintaining accurate master meters at all the water sources, as well as customer meters to measure both production and consumption. You want to periodically test and calibrate the meters to ensure reliability. All right, categorize unauthorized consumption. So you want to record billed metered, billed unmetered, unbilled metered, and unbilled unmetered water usage to separate revenue generating and non-revenue water accurately. So there's four categories there we've looked at. We've seen the breakdown on those, but it's important to get at the root of the problem, especially if you're seeing non-revenue water numbers going up. You're really going to have to dive in, and having accurate data is going to allow you to do that assessment. All right, identify apparent losses. So that's documenting the unauthorized consumption, which once again, theft, whether it's stealing from hydrants, whether it's unauthorized taps, those types of things. You got to track that stuff down and identify that. Customer meter inaccuracies and systematic data handling errors. Now, bookkeeping, usually that's not going to be too systematic. A lot of times bookkeeping errors may just be reversing some numbers or something on there when it gets typed in, and so that may not necessarily be systematic necessarily. But generally, systematic data handling errors refers to bookkeeping errors, and that can lead to not reconciling things properly. So you got to look at that too. Track real losses, monitor leaks in mains, service connections, and storage tanks through proactive leak detection programs and repair records to document physical water losses. So we'll in a future program talk about all the techniques that are available, but a lot of times water systems will actually even employ their own simple water testing or leak detection equipment. But you can contract with people to come out a few times a year, once a year, and test your lines and do the different tests. And just something as simple as smoke tests can really go a long way. They're relatively cheap to do, and tracking down those leaks is really going to tighten up the ship and allow you to get that non-revenue water back in the revenue category. All right, so this is just an example of a simple spreadsheet here. Let me just hold it up there on my my spreadsheet. So you can see basically the top here we have the rows are for water produced. So the total water into the distribution system, any adjustments to the water delivery, and the net water produced is going to be your blue column there. So and then this goes month by month, so you can track this. And then down below, we're going to be in our water used category. So the first one is going to be metered water sold. So residential, commercial, industrial, institutional, other, and you can see I got some numbers filled in here on the first column, just an example. Generally, we're going to do this in on this particular spreadsheet. We're going to enter it into as millions of gallons. In this spreadsheet, you want to only enter data in the yellow cells because all the colored cells are going to be calculated cells, and you don't want to mess up those calculations. So then we get into our authorized uses of the water, and that's going to be your green totals here. So we have metered water sold. And then we have billed unmetered sales down here in row 5 and row 6. This is our unbilled authorized consumption. So we got a lot of categories here ranging from water main flushing, golf courses, cemeteries, road medians, schools, firefighting, construction, sewer plant uses, and a bunch of other uses here to account for any water that's authorized to be used, but is not billed. So you can see some of these are maintenance, so they may tie back to the city or the utility, so you're going to want to track that. That's hopefully a lot of these are going to be metered, but you may have to make an estimate here. Down in 7, we have our apparent water losses, which water meter malfunction or water meters that are just old and not calculating correctly is what that means. And then we have a theft category, and then any others there. And then we get into real losses down at number 8, which are going to be leaks, storage overflow, and anything else in that category. Most of this things in this category are probably going to be leaks. And then we have down below in line 9, our net lost or unmeasured water is going to be the difference between the water that's produced and the total of the green rows. So the metered water sold, the billed unmetered sales, and the unbilled authorized consumption are going to total up, and you're going to subtract from that what's left, and that is going to be, in this case, 4 here. And you can see in our row 7, apparent water losses, we got 2, and real water losses 2. That adds up to 4. So those numbers jive, and that basically gives you a percentage of lost or unmeasured water down below in the spreadsheet. So that number is going to be important because that really, obviously you can track real numbers, but looking at that percentage is going to be important because what happens is you're going to track that percentage, and that then is going to basically get to where that's going to allow you to track your trends. So obviously, if your water losses number, if the percent is going up, and generally you want to try to keep that under 2% or less, 1 to 2% of water losses like that. But if that number is trending up, then obviously you need to go out and do some maintenance, track down those leaks, get them fixed, because that's money that's pouring into the ground and revenue that you don't have. So that's important to track that trend, graph it out. So get it all in the spreadsheet, see what that percentage is, and graph it out and see what your trends are, and make sure you're staying on track. All right. So long-term benefits of doing this water loss assessment are really tracking non-revenue water through regular audits. It fosters a culture of accountability and allows for continuous improvement within our small utilities. And that's important. And having a simple tool like a spreadsheet is going to make it much more usable than trying to do some really complicated software, and people just don't want to do it. If you're just plugging numbers into a spreadsheet and looking at those trends, that's going to be the easy way to do and allow you to effectively manage things. So we're going to get increased customer satisfaction from this due to service reliability. People losing water pressure, they don't like that. So if you got a big leak and they're losing water pressure, they're not going to like that. So you need to track that down and get that done. And kind of happy customers are good customers. They pay their bills on time. So, and potentially lower rates, that may be true. If you got a lot of losses and you start capturing those as revenue water, who knows? Maybe you can do that. Also, by addressing non-revenue water systematically, you can basically achieve the financial savings, get that non-revenue water back in the revenue category. That's the big goal here, really. And we can protect our valuable water resources and ensure compliance with regulatory standards while maintaining high service quality for our customers. But the bottom line is the finances. You're paying to produce the water. You want to make sure that you're getting revenue for as much of that water as possible. Leaks in the line are just wasted water that you paid to produce, and that's lost revenue. So we want to capture that if at all possible. All right, so that's our show today. Hopefully you found it instructive. I wanted to talk to you about, real quick here, we have a 12-month Water Masters Mastermind. It's going to be starting after the first of the year. This is a 12-month management program for small water systems, less than 3,000 connections. It's going to be a small group of people. We're going to have 6 to 8 people in this program. It's going to be over 12 months, and we're going to look at water system management from the standpoint of a small water utility, less than 3,000 connections, because there's a lot of training out there and programs out there that teach you how to be a really big water company, and that doesn't necessarily work for small water systems. We really focus on small water systems, and so that's important to have tools and techniques that really work for the small guys and don't take up a lot of their time, but keep them running as efficiently as possible. So this program is coming up. If you're interested, you can contact me at the email below, and I'll look forward to working with you next year on this program. I think it's going to be interesting. Thank you very much, and we will see you next week.